baby? This is Davey D. And if you ain't talking about champions, then you ain't talking about nothing. You are now tuned in with Lee and Rusty, and trust me, this is the best podcast on WWE Champions this side of the Mississippi.
What's up, WWE Champions Universe? Welcome to Champions Chat, the fastest growing podcast dedicated to the WWE Champions mobile app. I'm the hardcore champion, Rusty Graves, and with me, as always, your European title holder, Lee Brown. What's up, Lee?
That's funny. I'm like the most white guy you'll meet, and you make me the European champion. This is like when X-Pac held the title, right?
It's not. No, it's not about race, first of all, because the greatest European champion of all time was none other than D'Lo Brown. And he would wear the beret. He would come out with the long, thin cigarette thing. And he would, the true Frenchman, D'Lo Brown. So you are in the same legacy, in the same vein as the standard of excellence right now, D'Lo Brown.
Standard of excellence. There we go. I like it. Well, and with us today, we have a very special guest. So allow me to introduce the Daviest of D's.
Oh,
Davey D.
I was thinking that in my head. The Daviest of D's. Yeah.
Yes.
Hey.
Welcome to the podcast. How you
Thanks
doing?
for having me. But first, before we continue, why everybody got a belt except me?
Oh.
The $1 million champion.
Okay, yeah. I'll allow it.
Hey, that was my
We should have called you the cruiserweight. The cruiserweight champ. He's got on the luchador mask.
There you go.
Yeah.
I mean, either way will go. Why not both?
There you go. Yeah, you can hold multiple titles. You can be like the title collector gimmick that Kenny Omega did. You can just walk in with all of them draped across your arms.
Yeah,
I love it.
Lee, I thought you were gonna introduce Davey by the moniker that I gave him in a previous episode, which is the Kingmaker. He is the Kingmaker of all content creators. If you want to be famous, get this man in your corner and you will become. That's why we've got him on today. We have aspirations.
Wow.
I'll put
know our names
on it. I wouldn't say all content creators, but a couple notable ones.
You had a hand in a few.
Yeah. Just to not to cut you off or to hijack, but just to segue into that, the reason why it's so easy for me to help people is because I believe a rising tide raises all ships. And there's more than enough success to go around. Like me being at the top by myself doesn't benefit anyone but me. And then that becomes boring, just being a monopoly. So it's like, I help you now, maybe you help me later, maybe not. It doesn't matter. As long as, there's enough wealth to go around, I'm completely fine with that.
Oh, that's awesome. You have such a great attitude. So my first introduction to you was when you were coming back. So I didn't get into the content creator side of things and then DJ did this, video where it was your like reveal trailer coming back. And then Merrick started talking. And I'm like, who is this guy? It had like this man of mystery effect going of like, oh, I gotta, like, they're talking about it. I gotta know about him. So it worked. Your ad campaign, whatever that was. We
need to talk about that. Yeah.
That's good. Well, let's talk about how you got started first. So you were one of the earlier content creators. You took a hiatus, but how'd you get started streaming this game and why WWE Champions?
Okay, so currently, I just realized it. Currently, I think I am the last remaining original content creators. So way back in the day when the game launched in like 2017, I believe. Well, first things first, let's rewind to 2016. So I was just on YouTube. There was this random video pop-up recommendation, WWE Champions. And this was around the time where like Candy Crush was hot, like all of these gem matching games. And there was this Australian guy just playing it and it had wrestlers. It was like, oh, that looks cool. I want to play it. But it wasn't available. It was like an early release in another region. It was a soft launch in like Australia and whatnot. So then like I saved it to my Play Store to notify me when it comes live. And then I think like a while later, I forgot about it until it came up in my recommendations again. And this time, I believe it was either Lil C or Big Papa Brian that was playing it. So I was like, oh, I forgot about this game. I got into it. I started to play it. Funny story. I chose the name Davey D as a throwaway name because as a kid, I hated being called Davey. I was like, don't call me Davey. That's not my name. So I just put up a throwaway, Davey D. Like, nobody's going to have that. I didn't intend to be playing this game long at all because it's a mobile game, right? I was a die-hard console guy at the time. I was just entertaining it for whatever reason. But as the more I played it and I got into it, the puzzle aspect of it and the strategy aspect of it really stuck to me. I was like, okay, I'm gonna take this a little bit more seriously. And then I noticed not only was like Little C at the time making videos, is then I noticed Gerson was making videos. And then I don't know if you guys probably remember, there's a guy called Compatelli. He would do more like the intellectual breakdown of the posters and how to play and whatnot. And I would just see on their live streams like tons of people. I'm like, wait, not only are people making content for this game, like people are actually rabidly consuming it and wanting to be a part of it. So it's like, okay, I really love wrestling. I really love this game. And I really like to entertain people. And I was trying to see what pocket I could fit in, like where there was like, how should you say, room for rent in this big house. Because most people came to Gerson's streams to watch him do the polls because Gerson was the money man, getting like the big rosters. Then you also came to see either Big Papa Brian or Lil C feud because, you know, at the time they had 3-star goals and, you know, that was like the top of the top back in the day. So it's like, I don't have the wallet to compete with Gerson. I don't have the roster to compete with these other two guys. I definitely have the charisma and personality. Now it's not just enough to just make a video because all these other people are just doing videos. I have to find a way to stand out because I'm so small. So it's like, what can I do? I was like, oh, I'll wear a mask. This is like, this is like wrestling 101, luchador. It's like, even if you can't remember my name, you can just say, oh, just look for the guy who wears a mask and plays WWE Champions. And then the more I got into it, is like, okay, I would love to work with Scopely in some capacity for this game, because once I become passionate about something, I want to see it grow and I want to see it thrive. So I just consistently, no, that's a lie. No, not a lie. I'm rewriting history at this point. At the time, I was a leader of a faction called Tuvement, which is another story how I fell into that role. And we were trying to recruit. So it's like, let's make a faction YouTube where we could all upload our videos. And I figure by doing that, it will help mitigate me having a lack of roster variety. Like, we have different people in the faction. Obviously, they have different level characters and different stuff like that. It could serve as both a faction recruit method, as well as helping to build the channel to showcase what we offer and build an audience. Then eventually, as time went on, I realized like I was the only one mainly contributing to it. And then as we got like 100 subscribers, then I was able to like give us an official name. And then long story short, I took over the channel. But I was always grinding, trying to find a way into becoming a content creator. And it was kind of difficult. It felt like an exclusive club. It's like you have to know someone to get in. And I didn't know who to know to get in. You could obviously like message Gerson in the chat or Brian in the stream, like, hey, any tips for being a content creator? And they would give you tips and whatnot. And I took their advice. And I would kept iterating. And then it felt like, it came to a point where it felt like I was just like hitting a wall. Like there's nothing I could possibly do to be seen by Scopely when you have all these, the big three, as I call it, being out there constantly, as well as being promoted by the company. And then just one day on Discord, I got an invite to a server. I was like, okay. And I went in and it was like, Big Papa Brian's like, Davey D's here and he should have the green light to be a content creator. I was like, what? It was it was Brian, it was Gerson, and I think Lil C and Compy at the time. And I was like, oh, okay. thanks for having me. Like, that was my introduction. At that time, there was like no NDA. It was kind of like a handshake type deal.
Right.
And I mean, from there, history was made. I should also rewind now that I'm thinking about it. The other leg up that they had on other content creators is that they were previewing characters at the time, not necessarily playing the characters, but Chappie, who is the game designer, he would send them already pre-rendered footage. That's why, like, in that early footage, like, no matter who the character was, they would always be facing Undisputed Future Seth, because at that time he was like the top tier character.
Right.
So they would always have that leg up on other content creators, and I didn't have that. And what I would do is I would take their gameplay and I would kind of like chop it up to like the entrance music and add my funny commentary to the what they've already done. So that was the same yet kind of different. And then, as time progressed, the CC program got more expanded and different stuff like that. But yeah, long story short, my foray into becoming an official CC was seeing the game, admiring the game, and then fighting tooth and nail to find a way to get in. And then I was about to give up, the door opened for me.
Wow, that's incredible. So I'm going to hit a couple threads before we move on to the next question we talked about. One, you said the mask was something you added later. So you're telling me you don't wear that mask around as part of your just day to day. Like, that's a part of this, huh?
I mean, yes and yes. When I go outside, I wear a different kind of mask, but this is my champion's mask, and then my at-home mask is another beautiful horror that my wife has to endure.
What kind of mask do you wear when you walk into a bank? It would seem like some.
Oh, wow.
I wear my Shane McMahon mask because here comes the money.
Here comes the, yes.
That's the only mask to wear inside a bank.
Nice.
Oh, man. And then you said, like, you added your humor to it and stuff like that. So one of the things I notice every stream is, my goodness, you have just this incredible quick wit on stuff. Do you think about those things? Do you plan them, or is that just something that hits?
Oh no, I do not plan anything at all. I just ride on the edge of a lightning bolt. I would say
nice.
My quick wit comes from like growing up watching a lot of sitcoms. There's Martin, there's the Jamie Foxx show, there's In Living Color, like a lot of different improv. And then we have my mom, who's like very sarcastically witty. And then my dad, who's very funny with his theatrics. So it's like a melting pot of everything. And I also try to do this humor where I do damage control in the moment. So if I say something or do something that could potentially be detrimental, I either A, chastise myself in comedy format, or B, I acknowledge it and then kind of nullify it and say like, oh, it doesn't matter. Like the other stream, I inadvertently brought up politics. We're not supposed to bring up politics. And I would go like, I was speaking to third person, like, Davey D, don't talk about politics. And be like, too late, I already did. And then I just move on. It's just like, you put white out over it and just quickly move on. So yeah, I find it's best for me personally not to plan anything, because when you plan, I become so focused on, I have to hit A, B, C, D. It's just best to just be in the moment and just let whatever happens.
Yeah.
Within reason, I should say.
Well, it's kind of like that's like a Jim Gaffigan thing. If you ever watch his comedy, he always does like the voice of the audience. Like, when's this guy gonna stop talking about food?
Exactly.
Then, like, he's saying what you're thinking.
Yes, exactly. Like even that, I probably drew from Jim Gaffigan, because there's a lot of inspiration that I draw, whether consciously or subconsciously, that I just incorporate into everything. I don't know if there's anything that's I should say inherently my own. I think is, like I say, just like the bastard child of all of these comedians just inside of me manifesting. But yeah, I love Jim Gaffigan and that third person voice. I probably got that from him, honestly.
That's fine. I mean, I don't know if I heard any other comedian doing that before him, but I notice more and more now, like, hey, this is that thing where, oh, this is the voice of the audience. Like, oh yeah, yeah, you learned something from Jim. I like that. So,
Yeah, yeah.
so talk to us about you. You left the content creator space for a
Oh,
while.
yeah.
What caused that? What was, and then you came back. So tell us about the journey into the wilderness and returning home to Mother Scopely.
Mother Scopely. Well, funny enough, that was the third time I quit. The other two weren't so noticeable. Okay. The first time I quit, I wasn't even a CC. I was probably like playing the game like a couple months in or whatnot, and I was just frustrated at how difficult it was to play the game and remain relevant as a free-to-play player. And then when I came back that time, I was like, you know, I'm not going to let the game play me. I'm going to play the game. So I decided to play a lot more smarter. Smarter being at the time when feud was a really big thing. And, you know, you'll have factions who rotated. Me and my friend, who was also the leader of the faction movement that we were in, whenever it came to feud, we would, you know, exit our faction, go feud with like Execution, which was the top faction at the time, get the big rewards and come back home. Because even though at the time we were a faction of active players but casual, there was still some of us who were hardcore, but we only wanted to be hardcore like during feuds and whatnot. So that was my foray into playing smart. So that progressed into me becoming a CC and leveraging the way I play into my content. But there comes a point where when you're doing the same thing over and over again, it becomes samey and routine. Like what was once exciting becomes mundane. And I was becoming really, again, at that point, I was becoming frustrated with the game. It was starting to feel expensive to play this time, as well as hard to keep up, because as soon as you got one top tier poster, the next week there's another one you have to get. And it's like, I can't keep up. And at the time, I was also looking to get a job into the gaming industry, which I did so happen to get with Top Golf Media at the time. So the gaming industry was new and it was compelling. It was like seeing what was on the other side of the curtain. Like all of these years, I've only been a consumer, and now I'm going to be an actual creator and designer. So from that point of view, like my interest in the game completely waned, because I had no enticement or motivation to create content, because I'm actually working on the nuts and bolts on the other side of what makes the game work, what makes the game tick, what's the logic of creating game balance, what do you do when you encounter a bug, how to ticket it, like all of these different things that I found really compelling and interesting. So from that aspect, I told the community manager, which is Furp, I was like, I think this is it for me. Like, I'm done. Like, I don't really want to do it anymore. It's not interesting. And he was like, oh, no, you can stay. We can still keep you active. Like, to his credit, he was trying to find every way to keep me around. But I felt like I would have been cheating, in the sense of like cheating someone else of the opportunity of that seat at the table if it's just there vacant, getting cobwebs. I was like, no, I'm good. I've reached the pinnacle of the mountain. That's it. Davey D signing out. So I did like my grand hurrah final stream, and then like I just went off into the sunset to enjoy game dev and everything that came along with it. And then of course, like that past lover of what could have been, like a year later, like I started to feel the itches again, because I'm playing, I was working on a golf game for Top Golf, and I was like, oh, all of these stuff that they do over here, this is the trap. I wonder how Champions is doing it. Let me just look from a professional lens to see what they're doing, if they're doing it correctly. And as I came back, like 9-10 months later, and of course the game had changed and evolved at that point. I was like, oh, this is actually interesting. Like the portal was actually mind-blowing and interesting for me, because that became like gaming plus, another way to interact outside of the game. And I was really intrigued by the trivia. I was like, oh, this is smart. You're requiring me to use my wrestling knowledge to get more resources and rewards that I can then reinvest in the game. It's like, oh, this is smart. I wanted to steal that idea so bad for Top Golf. And I was playing, and then I reached out to Jeff. I was like, hey, you guys, this go around, you guys really have a well-balanced game. He was like, oh yeah, you think so? I was like, yeah, I've been playing, you know, I'm not in a faction. I've just been logging in every now and again. And the rewards, you know, the daily login rewards, that time I think you guys had just introduced the streak as well, the login streak. I was like, just for turning up, I get more rewards. Like, this is great. And that was where the seed was planted again, because then I started to think how many more rewards you could have if you were in a faction.
Right.
Okay, let me just join like a regular no-name faction that my name would not show up on any leaderboards. And then the more and more I played, the itch became stronger and stronger. It's like, I guess I'm in. So then I reached out to Furpo, was like, oh, you know, it would be nice if I came back as a CC and I could tell people that, you know, here's what Champions is doing, and I can bring the game dev perspective. I wrote like this big long paragraph, and then Furpo replied, you had me at hello. you're back in. So I was like, oh, cool. So yeah, that was that. I left on a handshake, returned on a handshake, and Merex and DJ were so gracious enough to do that promo video for me to share on their channels, because I didn't want to take it for granted, like, oh, I'm Davey D, everybody knows who I am. I wanted to, and I did not expect Merex to give so many kind words. I was like completely floored and humbled by that. I just expected them to play it like a, you know, like a WWE vignette when like surprise wrestlers return and are debuting. That was it. And he had so many kind words, so that was very touching and humbling. So yeah, I was just summary. I left because I was bored. I found a new love, and then my ex started calling, and I returned, and here I am.
Well, don't tell your wife. Don't let her hear your ex was calling. Wrong ex, work wife.
Yeah.
Oh man, you know, so two thoughts real quick I relate to. So Rusty, you know, let the cat out of the bag. I was in an indie fed training for a while back in 2003 in Dallas, and watching wrestling became very different for me. I'd be watching it with other wrestlers, and they'd be, oh, he's going to do this spot. Oh, he turned the wrong way. Oh, if you drop the mic, then you get fined. Oh, if you know, and it almost like all these little insider things that for a while, like it took me a good 5-10 years after I left the Federation to get those out of my head. I'd be watching, I'd be like, oh, okay, now I know, like now we know they script promos and stuff, but you could tell like, okay, that was a scripted line. Here's where he's saying this, but even like, okay, they're about to do this spot, or, oh, they're about to go, and now the heel's going to try and get heat. And it was almost like, it takes your love for it in some ways to a different level, but on other ways, it almost kind of took some of the joy out of it. Cause I was like, well, I know what they're about to do. I know how this is about to play out. And, it made it hard to watch for a season. So I get that. And the other thing, Rusty actually left the game as well and reached out to me at one point when he found out I was playing, and the portal, the daily login streak, all the things that like he went through a list of things of like, hey, this doesn't work. I don't like this. And it was like, well, actually they fixed that. Actually, this is different. Actually, there's so kind of what, Rusty, you remember those days?
Yeah, it sounds almost like the same time, Davey, when you were saying you came back into the game, it sounds like we might have been reintroduced to the game around the same time.
Possibly, yeah.
And it was a great time to come back. So many of the issues, if you listen to this show long enough, you'll hear Lee and I say, and I believe it to be true, that like, since that time when I came back, and I think it's evolved even more to today, where I'd say right now is the best time to be playing this game. There's never been a better time than right now, because they continue to expand their offerings. They continue to be more generous. They continue to give better free superstars. I mean, like the things we have now, right? When you mentioned what I call the Alberto Del Rio meta, right? Where it was like, it was lean, very slim pickings back then. So to get like, when I got the Miz, right? The trickster Miz, at 3-star, suddenly I was walking on clouds, you know. and today the caliber of character that's coming out.
Yeah.
Bob Orton for free.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, you know.
Yeah.
So, and I know you have to feel that, right, Davey? Like that this is the most fun time right now, or not?
I would agree. I would say it's the most plentiful, prosperous time in terms of just the sheer magnitude of resources they're giving out as well. There was a time when there was such a thing as having 15 health packs and having to wait 24 hours for health pack to regenerate before you could even play. Now they're giving out hundreds and thousands of health packs. There was a time where just having 1 million coins, you were like, what's the name of that dude? I forgot the name of the rich dude. Jeff Bezos. You were Jeff Bezos.
I was going to say Scrooge McDuck. Jeff Bezos is better.
Scrooge McDuck. Swimming in coins.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. What's it? Scrooge McDuck. I'm telling you. So I would say now, and plus, they every week you're guaranteed to get the opportunity at someone new. Where like back in the day, you had to probably like one a month, and there was like this anticipation. Who is it this month? Now it's like, who is it this week? And then sometimes in a week you get like 3 additional midweek characters. So I would definitely say there's more opportunities to grow. It is definitely a fun time in terms of also this is my just opinion. There's no tier list. It all boils down now in what different components you have. Do you have this strap? Do you have this medal? Do you have this trainer? Do you have this plate? It is not simply based on, do you have this top tier character? Are you in or are you out? You can make anyone viable. You can make anyone counter. It just depends. Just look at a Sir Zorro video. He has a brilliant mind. He will find a way to make something work that you didn't know it could work. So I would say, yeah, now is like a very good time to be playing.
That's awesome. Great. I wonder, would you even say, as far as the gameplay itself, this current meta with the new move sets, the new move types, I guess, that have just been released, and we're still learning how combos work. We're still learning how reversal and hardcore, like what are you thinking about the actual game experience and how these new move types have affected it?
I would say when it comes to stuff like the new move set, especially reversal, this is like relevant, not relevant, same-ish kind of alleyway. I feel like these are how dodge should have worked from the beginning, because going into this, you have an idea. Okay, if my opponent has this move loaded, or if I have this particular move loaded, I'm guaranteed to get an extra turn. I'm guaranteed to have a skip turn, thereby giving you an opportunity to say, okay, if A happens, what is my contingency for that? So I can still have a chance at winning. So I feel like if not that the things they were doing before weren't thought out, I feel like they are way more well balanced and counterbalanced now to the point where how should I say it? Like a classic example, Kama came out before the combo moves, and let's be honest, it was horrible. We tried so hard to make him work on the stream. Me and Professor, we tried so hard to make him work. And afterwards in the CC chat, we're talking to Furpo, giving feedback to the devs, like, this is outrageous. He's in the nation of domination. We've all waited so long. This is atrocious. Like, make him better. And then the combo move comes out, which I believe it does like more damage for every trap gem or something like that. And it completely puts him over the top. So these combo moves, whether for the new characters or for the older characters, is adding like a nice other layer. It's kind of like like you're at a job, and one of the perks of your jobs is that you get to eat the donuts as soon as they come out the oven. Nobody else gets that perk. So it's like these new combo moves add like a new layer of deliciousness on
I want that job.
Yeah. Everybody wants that job.
I'm applying for that job right now on my laptop while you talk. Keep talking. Customer
and CEO. Yeah, so
that's right.
Not
I would
only
say the new combo moves. I'm a complete fan of them. I just see it as a 2-for-1 special. That you have to have the right in some scenarios you have to have the right conditions, whether it be a specific class or subclass, which I think is cool. Which the subclass extends across all classes, and yeah, it breathes new life into characters that were already hitting hard or characters that weren't hitting hard enough. I just think, yeah, I'm just a complete fan of it all.
Can I ask just a follow-up? And if feel free to not answer if you can't, but when you had that conversation with Furpo, like, did he say, oh, just wait, we've got something really cool in store. We're going to release these combo moves for Kama? Or was it like, let's go back to the drawing board and rework him? Are you allowed to say which?
I can say without being specific. So basically,
Sure.
His standard response is, he collects the feedback and he'll get back to us because, he has people he has to report to. And a common misconception is that, even though he is a company man and he is the face of the company for the community, and he has his, how should I say, his script he has to say, he's still a player and a fan at heart. So, there are times when he will agree with us and he may be privy to information that we are not privy to. And, he kind of speaks in like riddles and ominous orations. And then when we see the changes, we're like, oh, that's what you meant, but you obviously couldn't say. But more often than not, he's very much in agreement with what we're saying from a player standpoint, but he has that middle ground he has to toe as well, given his job description.
Yeah, that's great.
Can we start a podcast, Ominous Orations, with Davey D? That is the best thing. Like, I love that.
A segment, maybe just a segment on this one. Where we have to,
segment, right? And now
Davey,
it's time for your ominous orations.
I pictured Furpo being like Charlie's Angels, just talking to you guys through this little communications
really
box. And
he really is. He really. Nobody knows what he looks like. We just,
right.
Yeah, he really is. Yeah. His Twitter profile is his profile picture everywhere. He's exactly that guy, Charlie.
Yeah.
Hilarious. Wow. So you talked about some of the changes in the game. We've kind of talked about how like 6-star silver changed some things, but it's really been this last like couple of months, or really last month or two, really, that things have kind of changed. What do you feel like this new meta is doing for the game, and how do you feel like it's kind of changed things up?
Honestly, I don't think it has changed much. I just feel that is more health, more damage. I know they were talking at one time they wanted to bring back more strategic gameplay. They wanted to focus on longer gameplay, like in the earlier days without trainers and straps and all this stuff. It was like a lot of back and forth, a lot more strategy. Now the meta, I don't know if it can ever be brought back. It's just like who does the most damage quickly to get the match over with. I don't think 6-star silver has really changed anything from that aspect, as opposed to just being a bridge to the eventual 6-star gold. Like, you just got to keep getting stronger and stronger to keep up with the way the game is progressing. I would say the real game changer, again, would definitely be the combo moves. It would definitely be the kinds of plates, these ultimate skill plates that we're getting. What else? The newest like mode, like boss battle, reinvigorating older modes like Showdown. Oh, you love boss battle. Reinvigorating older modes like Showdown.
That's Rusty's jam. He is the boss battle guy.
This is a boss battle week, so this is a good week. I'm looking forward to it, and we are going to take down Carmelo Hayes this weekend.
This is a good week to be Rusty.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, that's just me personally. It's just more health and more damage to be viable longer. That's how I see it. I think the real meat and potatoes is all the other mechanics and gameplay modes going on in the game.
good.
Can I ask you a question about your history?
Yeah.
When Lee and I first started this experiment of a podcast, we very recklessly, I'll put it on me, very recklessly used the phrase, "We are the first and only WWE Champions podcast." And I'll speak for myself, was very proud of that title, that moniker that I gave myself. And I was corrected. After like the second episode aired, they're like, "Who the heck do these guys think they are?" And I've heard recently you had a pretty interesting podcast at one point. So we're definitely not the first.
No.
Tell us about
your research, Rusty.
I looked on the podcast app, right? On like Spotify, Apple.
Okay.
I didn't find an audio podcast. And so to our ignorance of other platforms like Twitch and YouTube, and people were broadcasting. And so I think, and maybe we are the first audio only podcast, probably because everyone else thought that'll never be viable. That'll be boring. You're talking about a video game, lame. And so here we are experimenting with video now. But I'd love to ask you about your kind of journey through the podcast, universe as well.
To your credit, and in all fairness, you probably would have never, ever found my podcast, because at the time we were doing it via RSS feed. It's like, if you didn't have that link, you would never, ever find out about it. How did the podcast come? Oh yeah, the podcast came about, again, trying to reinvigorate our faction. It was at a time during the game where it was like a pretty lull moment in time for the game. It was like, this was like way before MLCs. This was like way before special tours. I think it was just primarily doing dailies. That was the thing, dailies and a gajillion blitzes. And it was just like, pretty, same old, same old. So we're trying to find ways to do what the portal is currently doing, like additional ways to be immersed in the game without actually having to play the game. So me and the then faction leader at the time, the Vengeful One, we was like, okay. Well, I did. I was like, okay, we're going to do a podcast, and me and Vengeful is in it. This was the first time he was hearing about this idea as well. So to my luck, he used to be like a radio DJ in college. So, I mean, that worked out perfectly. And we decided we're going to like just interview like faction leaders, notable members of the community, just like stuff like that. I was, of course, going to be like the color commentary, because I'm not very good at playing a serious role, and he's very good at being serious and keeping stuff on track. So, we interviewed people like Gerson, Calvin from Execution. I think we did Punisher. I don't know if you guys remember Kanation. She is a lady, a Canadian lady who was a feud beast. She would always be at the top of the feud leaderboards. Funny story about how we got to interview Jeff from Scopely. So again, our faction, we build it a casual place for active players. Or whenever feud would happen, we would always, make sure to take care of everyone. Hey, I'm going to be, in the lobby if anyone needs to run theirs through, just very helpful, a small family camaraderie type thing. And like I said, eventually Vengeful and I, we would go over the feud of Execution and come back. Then after a time, we realized, you know what, this is not very viable, and is also not fair to the faction members. And it doesn't look good, as leaders leaving and coming back. It's like, I think we're just going to move on and leave the faction in good hands. So we had our like little farewell week or whatnot. And then the day that we were officially out of leadership and out of the faction server per se, him and I were talking, and I was like, we need to come up with another name for the podcast, because we're no longer in Tuvement, so it can't be the Tuvement podcast. And then he messaged me like, holy bleep. And I was like, I don't think that's going to be a good name for a podcast. And he was like, Jeff just messaged me. I was like, who? He's like, the game designer for Champions. I was like, why? Like, why would this random company person message you? He was like, he was in our faction the whole time. And I was like, what? Apparently, he was not only a dev, but a player of the game as well. And he liked our faction. He joined our faction because of my marketing, a casual place for active players. And he would like, sitting on the conversations and whatnot, discussing the game as a player, talking about balance and whatnot. And he said like Jeff reached out to him like, yeah, sorry to see you guys go. We really loved you guys. You guys are like great leaders and whatnot. And he was like, we got to have you on the podcast. And he was like, sure. So that really made it official for us. Like we actually got someone from the company on the podcast. And then like to your original question, I don't remember if you asked me that when we started recording or before, about if I excuse me, if I think about what I'm going to say or if I just ad lib. But the very first introduction on the podcast is like, here we have Jeff from Scopely. Some of you may know him as Jiggy Jeff. Some of y'all may know him as Jazzy Jeff, but we know him as Juicy Jeff. This is literally the first time I've ever called him that. And everybody was like, what is going on? And that nickname just stuck. He's still currently known as Juicy Jeff. So
incredible.
Yeah, I mean, magic just happens when I open my mouth.
This story might be the highlight of everything we've ever recorded, I think, on this podcast. Incredible that he was it's like undercover boss, Oh like
yeah.
Not only am I the janitor, but I'm also the CEO.
Yeah, yeah,
exactly.
Like, what? And what's funny is that when he said that, I immediately thought back to all the times we were trash talking Scopely in the server. Oh, the devs suck. I was like, oh my God, I hope I didn't say anything too horrendous. Like,
He's probably screenshotting it and sending it to his buddies at work, like, hey, they're talking about you.
Yeah. It probably was. But yeah, I mean, that was my foray into the podcast arena, just trying to find a way to promote ourselves, make ourselves in a sense bigger than the game, or should I say put a spotlight on us that we will be more noticeable by Scopely, or here are these guys who are doing stuff outside of the game to help spread more word about the game. Let's connect and possibly work with these guys. That was everything I did in terms of content creation. Every idea was the end goal was always to work with Scopely in some capacity.
So one of the things that I'm hearing from this, because this is something that resonates well, because all the things you're talking about is stuff like Rusty and I have conversations behind the scene, like, hey, we're starting this podcast. And it starts out as a thing for our faction to just get people more engaged. We just want to be more helpful there.
Yeah.
And then we're like, oh my gosh, people are actually listening to this thing. Like, wow, we got to start stepping it up. And then Iron Sheik being on there the first time, Professor, yourself, like just who, like we're not trying to like, climb our way up the ladder and like use people and stuff. Like we genuinely care and want to see you guys like just talk about what your stories are, and then go into YouTube. And we even talk like, oh my gosh, if we're really going to do something, we got to figure out this Twitch thing or something. Like, I don't know, but it's like it kind of morphed and evolved from just, this is our factions podcast and we hope a few of them listen to it, to we just really love this game. I'd love to see something happen with it.
Yeah.
So
and I mean, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with, like you said, climbing the ladder. It's all about how you do it,
Right.
As long as you are always gracious, you leave people feeling better than they were when they come on. I mean, as long as you leave a good taste in people's mouths, is completely all right to
as long as you're juicy.
Yeah.
Davey, I'm just wondering how I taste in your mouth right now. Is it good?
Oh my gosh. This is a PG podcast.
No, a good day. You said leave a
I was given clear instructions, not innuendos. I was like, I'll leave that alone. And then the spirit of Davey D sat upon Rusty like a mantle, and he couldn't help himself.
We may throw up the explicit disclaimer on this one for the first time.
For the first time, blame it on Davey D.
After hours with Davey D.
I like
wow.
Sorry, I'll stop. I've been on mute so long. My mind has been working. Oh my
gosh, that was hilarious.
Overboard. But no, you're right. We're here. I think I can express this for Lee too. We just want to be friends. We just want to have friends in the game. And we've been fans for a long time, and we've been friendly with certain people. And now it's like, it's kind of cool to see my boss battle prep list be something that a content creator might reference or consider, or that they would be on our podcast or talk about it or even promote it to one another. So we're so glad you're hanging with us. I wanted, before this got away from us today, for you just to take a minute to plug how people can follow you, how they can follow your channels. I know you've got a pretty cool merch line. We'd love for you to talk about some of that for a sec.
Oh, I wasn't thinking. I should have some of my t-shirts up here. So yeah, you can find me literally everywhere as Davey D Gaming. That's DAVEYD Gaming. That's on TikTok, YouTube, Twitch, Instagram, Facebook, X, formerly Twitter. What else? My merch, you can find that on redbubble.com/DaveyDGaming. And for my merch, as you can see right here, for those on YouTube, I have this shirt, Super Sugar Frosted Yeets, gluten sold separately. I wanted to awesome. I just didn't want to make a shirt that had my logo on it, Davey D Gaming. It's like, for me as a consumer, that's boring. I wanted to create like novelty shirts, like when somebody sees it, like it sparks like a conversation. It's like, what are frosted yeets? And then at the bottom it sees like at Davey D Gaming. Well, let me see what that's about. So that was my whole concept going in, because I totally enjoy like crossover shirts. Like I have this one Ninja Turtle shirt, but it's also like old school, like Marvel comic covers. So it's kind of like Michelangelo as Spider-Man, but instead of spider webs, it's like pizza and cheese everywhere. So I that's the kind of thing I like. And I felt like it would also be like on brand for me to not be the norm of what everyone else would do for merch.
Right.
So yeah, you can find me everywhere as Davey D Gaming. Davey D Gaming. And yeah, it's a good time to be had by all.
You have adult big and tall sizes? Do you have like a men's
we
plus
have
size?
all sizes. We have for adults, we have for like Tinkerbells, like Peter Pan size, everyone. All inclusive.
A baby onesie, put them in a little sugar
everything.
Frosted Heat.
Shower curtains, clocks, anything you could think of.
That's awesome. Awesome. Thanks for plugging your line, and we'll be sure to check it out. I'd love to get a one that fit me, and it has the Ninja Turtles involved.
I think Lee is in a panic room. Like the little hamster that's keeping the lights on gets tired every now and again.
My office has a motion sensor in it, and if I'm sitting in the main area over here, it's fine. But if I'm back towards the back where my shelf is, and this, like every once in a while, it just gives up, and I'm like, well, hopefully, I wasn't going to draw attention to it, because hopefully on the YouTubes, it's got you on their screen and nobody else saw it happen. But
the restroom
my office is like, oh no, danger, no one's moving.
For those that are listening, it goes from like a brightly lit room to the bat cave, just in like 1 second.
Yeah.
Yes.
The restroom at my office does that too. You'll be in there doing some paperwork, and you're in the dark. You know,
you can't. Like, someone help!
Lee, you ready to switch gears and talk about some WWE TV, or you want to get a more of the game?
I think we're good. Yeah. We're all fans of WWE. I mean, it's interesting because I was thinking about this the other day. So WWE is the industry, right? Mm-hmm. The game is a cottage industry. The three of us, more you than anybody else, we're in a cottage within a cottage. This is cottageception here. So let's pull back out to the main thing.
Yeah.
And let's talk about what's going on in wrestling right now. What's exciting you about wrestling right now, Rusty?
Whatever this, and this is the perfect month to have it on Champions, is whatever this NXT crossover is you know, Becky defended the NXT belt on Raw this week. Dominic is coming out with the North American title on SmackDown and talking trash. I don't understand. I mean, there used to be very clear lanes that superstars were drafted into and driving in.
Yeah.
Suddenly, the universes are colliding, and I love it because you never know what's going to happen on WWE TV. How about you, Davey?
I have not been consuming as much NXT as I should. Like in our household, like obviously the mainstays are Raw and SmackDown. I really got to catch up on Becky defeating Tiffany Stratton for that strap. I did see the Dominic one when he who was the North American champion at the time?
Wes Lee. He
Wes
was our
Lee,
current
yeah.
3 MLC character that he defeated.
Oh yeah. Also a very good top superstar in the game as well, for free. So I mean,
right.
I would say what's exciting for me right now, probably the Judgment Day. Honestly, I'm kind of bummed. I'm kind of bummed that Rhea has been off TV for a little bit because of, I don't know if it's a work or shoot, which is pretty good in my opinion. If in this day and age with all of this surplus of information that I can't tell if she's legitimately hurt or if it's all scripted, because it looked pretty real to me. And I've really been missing kayfabe. I really missed the days. The last time I felt like the lines between reality and scripted were blurred was when there was a whole Matt and Edge beef over Lita. Like,
oh yeah,
to me, that was very shades of gray. and I miss those days. So currently it kind of feels like that again because I'm a huge fan of Rhea. In my opinion, she is one, if not the top tier ladies wrestler in the industry right now. So I mean, this is not a shot at any of the others. For me, Rhea just has this commanding it factor. Like when she comes out in her entrance with the Judgment Day, she looks like she belongs there. I know, like in some factions, you just see like, here's like 3 guys and a female because, you know, you're supposed to have a female. Rhea, for me, legitimately looks like, this is mine as well. I am here. She could easily be the leader of that faction. She could easily kick anybody's butt in that faction. And that's why I love her, because she has such believability. So definitely for me, the Judgment Day. I should do a lot better at watching NXT. I am a huge fan of Carmelo because we all know Melo don't miss. I would have loved to see Braun Breaker's transition from the colorful kaleidoscope guy to now this meaner than evil guy. I would have loved to see how that took place. But yeah, man, I will have to lean on you guys to catch me up on NXT. But I'm a SmackDown first, then Raw, then NXT guy.
Wow.
Well, you're gonna have to change some thoughts there next year because they just announced that SmackDown is going to USA and Raw and NXT are going a surprising 3rd place, whatever that is. Now you mentioned Jeff Bezos. Triple H has been pictured with Jeff Bezos. We know Disney's wanted it. So Raw and NXT might next year, the bidding war of 2024 might be on a streaming platform or something.
So we're thinking we will have to pay to see Raw and NXT? No more free?
And SmackDown will be the free one. I don't know. It's going to have to see. Because if Disney picks it up, it'd go to ESPN or, maybe ABC or something like that. But if Amazon picks it up, you got to have Prime, right?
How about you, Lee?
So we've talked about, I don't watch NXT. I my limited hours, I oftentimes watch Wrestle Talk. I try to catch Raw, and then SmackDown's not even available in my area. We talked about this last week. Rusty's texting me, "Are you watching this on SmackDown?" I'm like, dude, I can't see it. Okay, here's the thing, though. Here's the one thing. SmackDown was in Denver, Colorado. I live in Denver, Colorado. The Rock came back after 4 years to Denver, Colorado, and I couldn't be there. And I was like, oh, I could have been. Like, this would have been the best night to be there, and I missed it. So
I thought you were
just
about to say you were in the building, and I was going to get so happy for you.
I know I could have been. Like, we go, like, my son and I have gone to Raw. We've done, we could have been there, and for budgetary reasons, I had to decline this opportunity. But
Davey, the place that Lee was on Discord with our faction family, 300 people, and I freak out and I throw it on Discord. Oh my gosh, The Rock is on SmackDown. Spoiler alert, they were so angry at me. They're like, what are you doing? Why are you telling? We record it. And I was like, it's on local, dude. Like, I'm watching it with an antenna. I'm watching it on Fox. Like,
I'm so sorry. And then the next day, The Rock's in Boulder, and I'm driving to Wyoming for a wedding. I'm like, I could go see Coach Prime. Whatever. But so that's my biggest regret from this recent wrestling stretch. But Davey, you made me think of, so you talk about the blurring the lines of reality. When I was a kid, I was a Hulk Hogan guy, right? Yeah. Like, I don't know if the camera's going to be on me when I do this or whatever, but right here on my shelf. Oh,
snap.
There's Hulk Hogan wearing the $1 million belt, by the way. And there was an angle, right, where Hulk Hogan gets stomped by Earthquake. And he's gone, and Hacksaw Jim Duggan has the armbands, and everybody cheer for the Hulkster, and all. He was like filming a movie, but I didn't know that, right? I'm a kid, and I'm just, I'm not trying to make comparisons, or shame with that kind of stuff, but like when they did the angle with Nia putting Rhea out, and she's already, like we mentioned last week, somebody in my former faction said she's a Dark Side of the Ring episode waiting to happen, and it just like, oh my gosh, that's so, but that's why it feels real.
Yeah,
because you don't know, like, oh my gosh, she's hurt so many people. What if she hurt? And it made me think of the Earthquake Hogan thing, where you're like,
because
was this
Nia
real?
Nia did the exact same move to Rhea's chest that Earthquake did to Hogan's chest, that broke his ribs and collapsed his lungs and all that. It was this big, Samoa drop, and that's why you had deja vu, because it was literally the same scenario.
PTSD.
Yeah.
My childhood, I literally prayed for Hulk Hogan. I thought he was going to die. I thought, he's in the hospital, his ribs are broken. Oh my gosh. And now we're in a spot where, kayfabe being kind of dead and all that, where we're like, did they do that on purpose? Is this to bring back CM Punk? Is this what this is? Like, we're just armchair quarterbacking the whole thing instead of just enjoying the experience. But anyway.
Real quick, what are your guys' opinion on kayfabe? Should it return? Is there a place for it in today's society, or is it just like a remnant of wrestling past that, it had its time and just let it stay there?
I'll say this. I like that they're using social media to push kayfabe these days. I like that some of the superstars are, and they'll even reference it on WWE TV. Like, this week on social media, Carmella called out, so like they're using the tools that are at our disposal in this kind of modern, era. And yet, I'll say this, my favorite podcast, just to give them some love, is on XM Radio. What is it? It's Bully Ray, that podcast they have.
Busted Open?
Busted Open. And Mark, they try to retain some era of kayfabe as they approach the stories, and I enjoy it the most. So that's my 2 cents on it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that there's got to be a balance. I don't think you can ever go back to the 1980s where, like, Hacksaw Jim Duggan and the Iron Sheik were in a car together and they made the news, and so they got fired because, like, we can't let people know. I don't think they can ever go back to that. But it's kind of like what we talked about earlier. Like, when I was in that indie promotion, when I was training as a wrestler, I got to see inside, what was going on. and it kind of took some of the intrigue away. It kind of took some of the mystery away. And when they do these things, we're like, oh, okay, I know everything else was scripted, but that wasn't supposed to happen. Like, ooh, okay, that maybe is real. If they can do it right and leverage it, just at the right moments, I think that could be just really, really impactful. And when they've got like Becky's Twitter game is on par with Wendy's, she's got those spicy comebacks. You're like, oh, that was just so good at building things up. Like, it just makes it more like when I was a kid, when Hulk Hogan got smashed, I had to tune in to see what was going to happen, because I was like, when's he going to come back? Is he going to heal? Like, there was no Twitter, like where Hulk Hogan was seen at a restaurant. Obviously, he's not really hurt, anything like that. And you lose a little bit of something with that. My most recent example is Cody Rhodes, right? Cody Rhodes coming back for the Royal Rumble. They announce it beforehand, and whether or not it was a foregone conclusion, instead of it being like, he's back and he's number 30, it was just literally like, oh, I guess he's coming back tomorrow. Okay. It just kind of took something from there. So if they can do it right, it can really bring you in.
Just like how they did with The Rock. Nobody knew until he was there.
Right.
Until I put it on Discord, no one knew the wiser.
and I would have leveraged some other resources and maybe sold some things if I would have known. Okay, so in that case, yes, if I'd have known The Rock was going to be there, I would have been there. So it backfired. But yeah, even that feeling of I missed it, now it's like, oh, this could happen at any time. Next time they come here, I have to make sure. And it just, even missing out makes your heart go fonder on that, because you just didn't know.
Yeah, that layer of unpredictability. That's why, like, I try to stay away from dirt sheets, because if I know too much, it becomes way harder to suspend disbelief. It's like, oh, this was like my wife, she already knew Nia was going to come back. I was like, how did you know? She's like, well, Google told me. I was like, stop reading dirt sheets.
Google.
It's like,
wow.
Well, let me throw this out to you guys. Maybe this can be our final segment today. But speaking of unpredictability, WWE released a handful of talent. It broke the news today. Some of the bigger names were Mustafa Ali, Dolph Ziggler, Shelton Benjamin, and Elias was on the chopping block, as well as Top Dollar, several ladies. Again, Lee, do you remember any of the other names?
No, you've kind of, Riddick Moss, and like
Rick
Dolph
Boogs.
Ziggler, Shelton Benjamin, those are the ones. Like those guys. Dolph Ziggler's been with that company for 19 years. Oh, Boogs,
Crazy.
That's right.
Rick Boogs,
Boogs had such a good thing for just that one window in time. I'm so sad for him.
Emma, who I didn't even know was still with the company. Emma, Aaliyah. Whoa, that's a lot. So just to say this, Mustafa Ali was set to wrestle Dominic for the title this coming weekend at the premium live event. So talk about unexpected. There's no way he knew. Or next Saturday at NXT No Mercy, he was scheduled for a title match.
Yes, yeah. I feel like they really, really dropped the ball on Ali. I feel like he had so much potential there. Like, they even gave him like retribution. There was so much that could have been done with him, and I just don't know why they didn't like double down. He's like a phenomenal athlete. He's good on the mic. He has a connection with the fans. And I mean, I just wanted so much more for him. Like, I literally just voted for him to be in the game, and now we won't ever see him in the game.
That's right. I didn't even think about that. I honestly thought when they did the now that we kind of have those little spoilery things where you can look at, okay, this weekend's event's going to be called this. I thought when Muhammad Ali came into the game, I thought it was going to be Mustafa Ali. I really did. I was telling people like, oh yeah, Mustafa Ali's in the game this weekend. But yeah, that's, I mean, Ziggler, they just never used well. I mean, world champion, and then he was a joke for so many years, and just a stepping stone. I mean, most of these names don't surprise me, but I do hear that there's supposed to be NXT releases later today. So right before that, so who knows? But definitely the corporate synergy of all this merging and all that. It feels like, you guys remember Black Thursday they called it or whatever, but during the pandemic, and then all of a sudden they released Braun Strowman and Bray Wyatt. it feels kind of like that a little bit again, but maybe on like the B tier right now. But what's going to happen next?
The Elias departure really shocks me because he was doing really good work recently with Ezekiel and not Elias, like that, and like the battle with KO. That was one of the best stories on the show, like recently, not too many months ago.
Yeah. I don't know the reasoning. For me, personally, Shelton Benjamin, I was still holding out hope for some form of Hurt Business kind of reunion for the longest while, but that's completely shot down now. I mean,
unless they go 2.0 with it. I mean, they could. So they've got Montez and Dawkins and Bobby together. There's rumors that Jade Cargill is going to come in. How crazy would it be if they do Hurt Business 2.0 and maybe add in like one other player in there, and then all of a sudden Judgment Day versus this new version of the Hurt Business? I'd be all over that.
I would pay good money to see Rhea versus Jade. I would pay good money.
I think it's coming. And I think Bobby might even bring up some of these young guys like a Carmelo or a Wesley to be like the high flyer, you know? That would be incredible.
Agreed.
Yeah, I'm for it. I am all for it. I just want to know what MVP is doing with Omos. It's like sometimes he's here, sometimes he's not. It's like what's going on? Like they brought him back. Sorry?
No, you're good. They just need MVP to go back to Lashley. I don't understand that whole relationship with Omos. So keep going. I didn't mean to interrupt. It just
no. I was going to say they started giving like kind of like a monster push, like he was feuding with Brock and stuff. It's like, oh, this guy's going to be a credible threat, and then poof. So I don't know how they're doing their booking.
Yeah, I don't. Well, I mean, I think we've kind of gone inside baseball a couple of times now, but I think the whole thing with Vince McMahon being out of the picture, back in the picture, like I really think you can see distinct movements of Triple H is clearly in charge, and all of a sudden Tommaso Ciampa and Johnny Gargano and all these guys, Bronson Reed, they're all of a sudden these top players. And then, like, all of a sudden, Vince McMahon gets back in charge. It's like, welcome back, Nia Jax. And Mustafa Ali, you can go away.
Right?
We're going to rewrite this show right now. And, like, oh.
Thanks for giving us what we did an axe for, but okay. I mean, it's a sad. Layoffs are never fun. I just hope I just hope that they're able to do kind of like Cody and Drew, go to the independents, rebrand, build up themselves, invest in themselves, and come back. That's my only hope.
Yeah, I agree. Well, Davey, so honored to have you on the podcast today. This has been phenomenal, exceeding expectations and audacious oratory excursions with Davey D, whatever we call it. You ever one back, we'd love to have you. So thank you for being here. And to all of our listeners in the community, it's an honor to smash gems alongside you. Be good to one another. We'll see you next time.
Thank you. Oh, and real quick before we go, excuse me. I want to say I am not a king maker. I am a king helper. I'm already helping you be the king that you have on the inside. I'm just like, hey, look at this dark corner. Shed a light on this. Double down on that aspect of yourself. So I'm helping you be a king. I don't make kings. I help kings see their own kingship. That's all.
That's a great way to wrap it up, Davey. Thanks for being on with us today.
Thanks for having me. You guys are great.